All right. Hey, Jeff, listen, I know you're excited. I need you to hold it down just a little bit less, okay? Because you get way too excited when you start to get into this stuff. Anyways, hey, I am excited though for today because I have on Darius West. Darius and I met on a more than a mastermind that we do with leadership community. Let me tell you, folks, we did an impromptu interview where we were going back and forth with questions and stuff. And let me tell you, he is full of leadership knowledge. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be gems dropped today. Grab your pen, grab your paper, because the notes are going to start to flow. Darius West, how are you doing, my sir?
I'm doing wonderfully, man. Thank you for having me, man. It's been a pleasure just connecting with you a couple weeks ago through our guy Brandon David, and man, just for us to connect and actually just have some of our the things that in our lives have crossed paths without actually meeting one another until now. I think we probably know a lot of the same people,
Yeah.
and that 6 degrees of separation, as they would call it,
Yeah, except it's not Kevin Bacon this time. It's Jesus
And
Christ.
Kevin Bacon, it's
So,
Christ, Yeshua.
hey, hey. So, listen, he's bringing up some good points because of the fact that, you know, I grew up in Oklahoma. He grew up in Oklahoma. I
Mhm.
went to higher dimensions with my parents. He worked there. He did other
Mhm.
stuff with them. There's too many connection points for us not to have a good conversation. Before we get going into that, we've got to go to the 5 questions, which I have to ask because I can't turn this thing off. So I have to ask him anyways. Do you think it's the little things or grand gestures that mean the most?
I believe it's the little things. I say this because I have 3 daughters, and so it's always these small lessons that we're able to teach them that actually affect the grand things, right? You can't achieve the great things unless you conquer the small things. Even Christ said, you be faithful with little, I'll put you over much. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's really a principle. A principle of life is, master the little things so that the little things become one big thing in life that you can overcome and achieve. So to me, little things are the details of life.
Mm, absolutely. Little things grow into big things very, very quickly. What is your favorite athletic
Favorite athletic activity to me is basketball. For me, to actually play. Favorite activity to watch is football, but for me, activity is basketball. I love playing basketball. Played basketball this past weekend with my nephew for his 10th birthday party, and it was like tons of kids. And got back out there, man. And I'm not hurting. I thought I was gonna be sore, but I wasn't.
you even got the swag in there still. You
Yeah,
got
got
all
the
that.
swag in there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So who's your favorite football team then?
Well, Cowboys. I know people hate on that, but I grew up a Cowboy fan. Well, when I was growing up in North Carolina, it was either the Cowboys, the Steelers, or Packers. So in the '70s and '80s, that's what it was. But later in life, I continued to be a Cowboy fan. And in college, I don't really have a favorite college team, football. Because it's
Hmm.
very competitive and just really really exciting.
Well, and just so you know, things really haven't changed around here, and it's still not Carolina Panthers. Just so you know. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
are you proud to tell people about your past, or are you more embarrassed about it?
I'm very proud to tell people about my past. I've kept a journal since I was 15 because I like looking at my past, like looking at the life lessons I've learned, things, the mistakes I've made that I've learned from, and even the things that I've accomplished and learned from those as well. There have been many a times as a older man, I look back and I see read what this 16 or 17-year-old kid wrote, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to be like him. You know, you know, what can I be like this dude? Can I get close to God like him? And
Wow.
so for me, it's been an encouragement to look back almost outside of my body and looking at this young man who had a love for God, a love for what God want for him in his life. And I even my oldest daughter, she's 15, so she started reading my journals at 15 because that's when I started. So it's something I want to pass on to my children for them to kind of read and learn some of the lessons and understand that, we as parents, a lot of times, teenagers or kids, you don't understand. Well, okay, well, read about this kid who
Mm.
who went through a lot of same things you went through as a believer and also a teenager, and see how he was able to navigate through that. So yeah, I love talking about my past. Yeah.
See, and I don't know if I would want my son to read 15-year-old me.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest, Darius. I don't know if I could do that for myself. And I think it's amazing that lessons best learned are those that were once lived. So
Yes.
yeah. All right. I don't know if this is a great question as we go into a podcast, but what are your thoughts about someone who's a chronic oversharer?
Chronic overshare. Oh man. Well, usually they tell on themselves a lot. They give out too much information. I know several people who are like that. That if you let them talk enough, they're gonna give you all the information you need, even if it's something that's they're using to manipulate others. So it's kind of like, I let them share, and just learn, just learn how to use the information being used to determine. I was watching a Bishop T.D. Jakes clip today. He says, uh, I'm not surprised by people. Like if you show me you're a fool, that's what I expect of you. If
Mm.
you show me that you're this kind of person, that's what I don't expect nothing else other than what you've shown me. So if you could show yourself as an oversharer, that's what I expect of you, and knowing that that's going to come from a person like that.
I mean, yes, absolutely. And the reason I was kind of worried about it was I was like, man, I don't know if I want to let this in because what if then he becomes an undersharer? Mm. But knowing you, I know that's not going to be the case. Hey, Darius, you did it well. You did the 5 questions. They were easy. Some would say those are the harder questions than everything else that we're going to get into, but we'll have to see how that goes.
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you walk us through your background, Darius? Just kind of take us, give us your past and bring us to what you're currently doing because you've had a lot of different media avenues that you've gone through. So I'm excited to get into this a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, how far you want to go back? Like growing up in Charlotte, then going to Tulsa, or just just in terms of media, or just in terms of life?
Nah, I would just say life.
Life.
Once you
Okay.
were in diapers on up, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I think one of the I'll start back when I'm 8, because that's probably one of the most memorable moments for me as a kid. Is in and it was more of a kind of a reality for me when my oldest daughter turned 8, and then my youngest daughter, I mean my middle daughter turned 8, and and on and on. Is like, wow, I was this young, right? It's just like you don't really think about how young you are when you were 8 until you actually have kids. Like, oh my god, that's 8. That's what 8 looks
Mm.
like, right? so
Now I
so
understand
when
what
I
my mama was saying. Mm.
yeah, exactly. So when I'm getting back to that number 8 of turning 8, the moment that changed my life, and I remember to this day, is being baptized, right? In the small Southern Black church in Charlotte, North Carolina, 15th Church of God on North Davidson in North Charlotte, and being baptized on that Sunday morning, afternoon, evening, I don't remember, and coming up out of the water, speaking in tongues, you know, at
Wow.
8 years old. And that's why I say, when I think about an 8-year-old kid now, I'm like, oh my God, that was me, right? I
Mm.
was 8 years old, you know, baptized in the Holy Spirit after I came up out of the water. So it made sense to me uh, later in life when my mom said that I received Christ at 5. I don't remember. I don't remember, saying the sinner's prayer at 5 years old. But the fact that at 8 years old, I come out of the water, it was just evidence that I already had received Christ in my life, right?
So,
So
so, so it was 3 years difference between profession to baptism.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And for whatever reason, but I don't remember most things when I was 5, but I just remember that one moment when I was 8. Um, and how that I believe that I've always known I was different, but I think something like that really kind of calls action to the fact that this is a different kid. This is someone who's different. Not every kid is being baptized in water and coming out speaking in, being
Hmm.
full of the Holy Spirit and with the evidence speaking of tongues. So I'm pretty sure I didn't understand it, or even understand what was happening, but it happened, and it wasn't like something that was coached. So it was something that was, just the power of God moving. So just growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and growing up as a young kid, a mother with two sons, a single parent. We stayed in the same house. My mom, my aunt, my two cousins, me and my brother, and my grandma. I grew up around women. Strong Black women. Like we always say, and just being around that. But I was, kind of like a church street boy. You know what I'm saying? I I was a church boy. I was, singing in the choir, glasses, doing the A and B selections, singing. So, I was always involved in music in some fashion, right? And so, but I had the street smarts too, what I'm saying? So, I was in, junior high. A lot of my best friends were drug dealers, so I would do their homework, and they'll give me money, or they'll give me bags of candy that I sell to make money. So I was a hustler too, what I'm saying? So I was my mom never knew, like, where you get this money from? Oh no, no, it's all good, let's go to the general store, let's go get some now laters, what I'm saying? That kind of thing. But but I knew and understood. My mom was she got saved when I was born. She was like 19 when she had me, 18 she had me, but 19 when she got saved. And she even tells me to this day how she, almost kind of like Lion King. Before Lion King was a thing, she lifted me up to God. And she tells me that how she dedicated me, wherever she was outside, to God, after she received Christ, watching PTL. I think it was Praise the Lord, PTL, because Heritage USA was probably like 20-25 minutes from our house in Charlotte. So we grew up going to Heritage USA. We grew up on the PTL. We grew up on Jimmy Baker and those kind of things. We
Hmm.
would go there. Man, Christmas time, all those lights, it was a big, it was a big deal, for the
Yeah.
Christian community as a whole. But yeah, so we grew up in church and all that kind of stuff. So we one of the things that kind of marked my life was being exposed to vision in terms of my mom telling us, uh, um, it's probably one morning before we went to school or something, or something like that, that she had a vision, and that she saw these praying hands, and and God told her to move to Oklahoma, and to go to school to Oral Roberts University, and we're like, well, what the heck is Oklahoma? You know what I'm saying? What is that? You know what I'm saying?
I was
You know,
born there, and I still ask that question.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Say, you're a teenager, or, I'm thinking by the time I was maybe 10 or 11, when she told us this. And this is kind of around the time where, I received, well, when my mom told me, it was like, as a kid, I was, I'm still analytical and kind of process information and trying to figure things out. But it was just one of these moments when my mom was driving, right? And it was just me and her, which always me, her, and my brother. It was never, one on one type of situation. I even recall hearing the music on the radio. Maranatha worship was happening on the radio. AM station. Driving down this road towards my aunt's house, all the trees from left to right, and seeing my mom crying. Right. I never seen her cry because she was very strong. Very adamant, strong spiritual woman. But I witnessed her crying. I'm like, Mom, what's wrong? I'm sitting in the front seat. She's we're in I think it was in a Toyota Corolla, man, the yellow Toyota Corolla. I can remember that. And she turns to me, right, and she says, your dad denied you as his son. And so it's like,
Mm.
and it was almost like, when we make this, I said this, about quite a few times in my life. We hear that statement that children are resilient, and children are able to, but the thing for me is like a lot of times kids don't know how to process emotionally what's happening. So it's not like they're resilient. It's like, I don't know what's going on, but there's something, it's actually affecting you, that something later on in life, it actually, comes up or whatever. So I don't think children are resilient in the fact that when they get bad news, it's just like they don't know how to process it emotionally because they're so young. And that was my situation too, because I remember her saying that. Then the next thing is I'm it was kind of like a block. Everything was like black, right? It was just kind of like I don't remember anything beyond that point or hearing that, and that as a young kid hearing that, I just remember the moments of going to court, having to go to the doctor, draw blood, give urine tests, DNA, all the kind of stuff that you have to do, and being on the witness stand. I'm in the eighth grade, seventh, eighth grade now. And I'm being taken out of school to come do all this stuff,
Wow.
and even have my dad's lawyer, like was cross-examining whatever me on the stand, and him saying, hey, you know did your brother take the test, did your brother do the urine, he was like accusing me of not being truthful, like it was my blood, it was actually my brother's blood,
Wow.
and just kind of like, dang, like what was, how did I process it, how did that affect me, what I'm saying. And
Hmm.
so that was right around the time when my mom, told us about her vision to go to Oral Roberts. Up to this point, we never really talked about vision in church, right? This is like, this is the '80s. Vision wasn't like a big thing. It was just like you go to church, you there, 8:30 in the morning for Sunday school. You have a little break. Everybody walk up to the corner store, get some nowadays or some juice, come back. It's devotion time at, I don't know, 9:30. I mean, probably 10 o'clock. Then, the praise and worship, they wouldn't call praise and worship then. It was called devotion. Devotion ends to about like noon. Then the preacher come up by 12:30. He's up there for like 2 or 3 hours. You got a service by 3:30 or 4. Go home for a couple hours, come back. So, that was our life.
Sunday night service. You had to do
And
Sunday night.
you had to do some Sunday night. So that was like, our whole life. But it was the first time when my mom said she had a vision. And and it was so real for her that was the first time I heard what, man, that's crazy, right? Um, and so we, it was, I said, around the same time of, her having this vision, me going through what I had to go through for, knowing that I was being denied as my dad's son, and the whole court case involved with that. um, my mom worked two jobs. She During the day she worked at the bank, a Federal Reserve Bank, really big in Charlotte. The bank is a, city is a Charlotte's a big bank city. She'll bring home shredded money, and stuff like that in bags and give it to us, or encased in glass, that kind of stuff that, I don't know what that stuff is now, um, but she worked during the day, doing it, and at night she would um, clean up office buildings, right? So she worked, and in between that, and she would take us to all of our soccer practices. Me and my brother was really good in soccer, so we played soccer for good 5 to 6 seasons, and we was on championship teams and things like that. But during this time, she found a tape. Well, she probably didn't. Someone probably gave her a tape or whatever. She went to Berean or whatever Christian bookstores in Charlotte, and she handed me this tape. It was Carmen, right? And I life how effective it was to me at that moment, going through what I was going through, and just really as a young kid. And I would tell my brother, just while we were working with her, because we'll work with her at night in the office buildings, right? Do our homework, kind of sometimes bring it with us, and vacuum and take out the trash, stuff like that. And I always tell my older brother, I'm gonna know this guy one day. He's like, man, you
Oh
crazy.
wow.
What I'm saying? You're 10, 11, 12 years old, whatever, what have you, and you're telling, you know, your brother, this white dude that's on this little cassette tape, this Italian white dude named Carmen, that radically saved cassette. I knew every lyric to every song. He said, I'm gonna know this dude one day. He's like, man, you crazy. Then like I said, just around the time my mom had this vision go to Oklahoma. 2 years later, after my grandfather passes away, my mom has her release to kind of leave Charlotte in a sense. So we pack up and move to Oklahoma. somewhere we never knew what was what. We did actually visit. We did fly on a plane for the first time. Went to go visit some friends that actually grew up in Charlotte with us there, and we did visit Higher Dimensions. I remember, and I remember how powerful it was. It was like, man, it was first time I ever been to a church. It was like not only black people, you know what I'm saying? It was white people and black people, Hispanic. I was like, what is this? It was kind of exciting. And so a year later, we moved. We made this is 1988, summer of '88, um, and so we made this move based upon the vision that my mom had and to go to Oral Roberts University. Then I get there in '88. I'm 14, and and it was 2 years later that I met Carmen. We knew everyone knew at the church Carmen went there, so you saw him. What I'm saying, you saw him. You like, what's up, Carmen? That kind of thing. In the youth group, or everybody knew Carmen went there. So I didn't know he went there until I went there. I was like, oh my God, that's the dude that I listened to. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah,
young,
it's
it's a
getting
young kid.
closer, bro. It's
It's
getting
getting,
closer. I'm
it's getting closer.
told you.
Yeah, right. And so kind of fast forward at around 16, I'm a senior in high school. I graduated when I was 17. So senior in high school, beginning of high school, I started doing choreography. Uh, that senior year, it was some kind of talent contest or something, and I said, I do it because I at the time I got influenced by MC Hammer. A buddy of mine. We went to school together. We stayed in ORU grad housing. That's where I grew up as a teenager. Grad housing. What's up? Whoop whoop. And so I would go over his house and watch, Video Soul or MTV or raps or something. And you see, and he would record on VHS all the MC Hammer stuff for me, and I would go home and practice it. When my mom wasn't there, then she would show up. I'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" Because she didn't want no boogaloo in the house, no secular music. so, and yeah. So it was my influence. So in senior, I choreographed this jam to like a bridge over troubled water. So it was kind of like like a slow song because it was just me and a bunch of women, girls. You know what I'm saying? So no guys wanted to dance, so I had to kind of make it kind of slow, and that started me on my way, my path in terms of choreography because you know um, we we started a rap group around this time as well. The Higher D, myself, and a good friend of mine, Morris. We called ourselves DMT, Destiny Manifesting in Time, and it was this big Christmas production, and we had these hammer pans made for us. I can remember this day. It was like there was there was black on each leg, and the middle part was white. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like this whole hammer thing. And so we did our dancing and rapping. It was a whole big production. Hardy always did things big, and we was part of that as youth. And Carlton will always tell me, he'll always tell us youth, that he saw what we did was considered backdoor evangelism. I remember he always said backdoor evangelism. And so he coined that phrase, and that was his way of allowing us to do what we did in terms of dance and rapping and what have you. That was the first time, in any church I've known at during that time in the late '80s, early '90s, that any pastor, biggest Carlton, would
Mhm.
would allow young people to share the stage like that. And
And Carlton
so,
Pearson had an absolutely amazing church. It just the concept of what was there, and you're right. It it felt more in the traditional black African American feel. I remember growing up in Oklahoma City, and
yeah,
my parents, we would drive about once a month up to Tulsa to go visit friends. And my dad actually worked up there for a little while. And we would go visit. And every single time that we came up, there was no go to except Higher Dimensions. Like
yeah,
that was it. And you would go there. But it was times when you walk into a church building and it feels like a funeral home. And then
hmm
there's other times when you walk in. Now, the true representation of what heaven looks like
yeah,
is people like you, people
yep,
like me, and
yep,
we're having the conversation and we're praising and worshiping that exact same way. And that's what it felt like. So to know that backdoor evangelism, even even today with the missionaries I have living with us right now. Like that's exactly how it is. And I backdoor, man, come on, backdoor evangelism. That's awesome.
Yeah. So Carlton, yeah, he was he 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 saw what other people didn't see. Also Carmen as well, And so getting back to this Christmas production, after the Christmas production, it was great. I can't even remember even what happened during the Christmas production, but I just remember Carmen walking up to me and my good friend Morris. I was a senior, 16, and he's like, "Hey man, I need you guys to teach me those dance moves that you do." We was like, "Huh?" You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, "Well, just kind of, and I even write about this in my journal, and and what happened, and then just kind of move it along, over the course of, man, a good year and a half. Uh, we was going to Carmen's house, man, teaching them dance moves, anything from the running man to the cabbage patch to even moves that we made up. And he had a wooden dance floor built in his living room that we would use to teach him dance moves. And he had one of the first CD, what you got, jukeboxes put in this house. And
Oh
so,
wow.
yeah, so it was cool. So it became a whole thing. We'll come over here, piece of, we'll be hanging out. Sometimes he'll pick me up from school. He'll, come pick me up from home, from the crib. People like, "Yo, Carmen, he came to pick up Darius." What I'm saying, and just kind of like going back to they little kid, 11, 12 years old, and telling his brother, "I'm gonna know Carmen one day. I'm gonna know this dude one day," and to actually be hanging out with him 4 years later is like, what? And it's kind of like,
Prophesy.
prophesying over, my own life for what I didn't even know, you know what I'm saying? And that was a principle that I learned and I understood, that I always look back at, like, I can use the same thing that I did as a kid, childlike faith. Wait, all right, because I see it for my life. Not that I'm just going naming and claiming. There's not. It's something that I see for my life that I say, hey, I'm gonna know this person one day. I'm gonna do this one day. I'm gonna do it. So I use that same thing. So I was went we did the his first Christian rap, if you want to call it that, was Resurrection Rap. Carmen did
Yep.
Resurrection Rap 1991. And man, if you go back and watch that music video, still good friends with Stephen Yake. And he did all the Carmen stuff, music videos and stuff. He worked for Bobby George Ministry. I can't remember set. And just in Tulsa, Broken Arrow. But yeah, so Carmen made sure that I got highlighted in the music video. He looked at Yake. He took me to the side with him and Yake and said, "Hey, Yake, I want Darius to be highlighted. What can we do?" And we came up with this idea that at the end of the music video, that Carmen would come by, and it would show me dancing. He'd come by here, he'll smack my hand like I have my hand out, and he'd give me like a high five, when he's walking away in the music video. So if you go back, you'll see me. I have this Gumby, in Charlotte we call it Gumby. Some people call it Ronald Reagan. I had this Gumby haircut. And you'll see, if I look at the video now, I'll see a lot of the young people that were in our youth group, because it was basically our youth group out there. Everybody that was out there dancing was in our youth group. You know what I'm saying? And so we had a great youth group, man. I don't think anybody had an even better youth group than us. So that was 1990, 1991, where we did that. Then I think a year later they did A to J, Addicted to Jesus with DC Talk. We was on the side, myself and Morris, just hanging out, and just there as more like choreographers for Carmen. So he'd come off to say, "Hey man, how about I do this?" "Oh yeah, let's do this." Okay, so it's time to roll again. He go out there, maybe do a move or two that we taught him. So he immediately introduced myself and Morris into the industry, and Christian music industry, because you know he saw a couple young men that had a passion for God and really wanted to use their gifts. So at 92, I started college at Oral Roberts University. I can't remember. Yeah, I think in 93, that next summer, was the release of Who's in the House. The song Who's in the House, those who know, that was like Carmen's second kind of rap, Christian rap, a song or and music video. Well, I know the guy who actually wrote it, who's my big brother in the industry, as well as a good friend, Michael Anthony Taylor, who is also the executive producer of Mic Drop. He let me hear it before Carmen heard it. He said, "Man, check this out." Was over the phone, and it was like, "Who's in the house?" Instead of saying JC, he just had the sample of people like a crowd, So he's like, they're supposed to say JC, and so I heard like the demo version of it because he worked with Carmen, kind of helping writing and producing, just give some ideas, and so next thing you know, Carmen picks it up and it becomes a hit, and it was the first time that Carmen was doing a music video and he was actually doing auditions and paying for dancers to be in the music video. So, and I remember him telling me, "Hey man, you coming to the audition for who's?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." And you got, I never took a dance class in my life. I was not a professional dancer. I just, I taught myself, watching Hammer and things like that, and kind of, doing my thing. And so, man, he shows up. I show up at the auditions. It was in Broken Arrow at some dance studio. I remember to this day, and it was about 100 kids out there, man. And I wouldn't say kids because most of these were teenagers who were trained dancers from jazz to ballet and what have you. And I'm just little black dude, just know how to do hip hop. That's it. So then and they hired this professional choreographer from LA who flew in to do all the auditions. So I'm in there with, trained dancers, people who've been doing this since they were 5, 6, and they're not really doing any hip hop moves. They're doing a bunch of jazzy type stuff, right? And man, I'm trying my best. I'm just trying my best. You know what I'm saying? I just she I understood the counts, because that's what I used with the dancers I was over in Steps of Praise. During this time, Steps of Praise had been established in higher dimensions, so I was over that as a choreographer and leader. So I understood the basics of choreography. So I thought, I'm gonna do this. And although I could never get in those moves they were doing because it was just kind of out of my range in a sense, I thought of mom. But I was like, oh man, okay, whatever. So it comes to the time where everybody has to line up. You got, in groups of like maybe 20 or 30 dancers line up, and they say, okay, you stay, you stay, you stay. And it comes down to I'm there. It's like maybe 10, 15 people left. I'm like, oh shoot. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I made it this far, maybe. And
down.
I was like, what? I thought that was good. I know I was bad, but so anyway, I get chosen. They chose 4 dancers. Me, another guy that came with her. So I think he was automatic. And they chose 2 other female dancers. And I was kind of baffled because I was like, there's no way she picked me because I was doing these moves because I could not get these moves, because I was that was foreign world to me, man. I didn't know that world. We didn't do any choreography in front of mirrors. We just did it watching each other, and that kind of stuff. So, and she pulled me to the side because I was like, huh, She said, you know why I picked you? I said, I know it ain't because I got the choreography because I was horrible. She said, no, it ain't because of that. She said, your presence, your stage presence, your smile, the way you lit up the room when you could not get the moves. She says, I'm not concerned about that because you'll get the choreography. And because I don't know, it's just your stage presence and the way I was like, oh snap. And I learned something that I've used over the course of my life when people are are not as skilled in a certain area. It's like, not being chosen because of how skilled you are, but because you had the raw talent. And that's what I understood. She saw a raw talent in me that she said, oh, the moves, I ain't worried about that. You'll get that eventually. And so I was like, dang, I'm about to get paid. I'm about to get paid, and Carmen came in, Carmen was in the last process, just watching and how they did it. And he pulled me to the side and said, hey, I'm gonna tell you something, man. I didn't tell her about you or anything, bro. He says, the fact that you made it through It lets you know how gifted you are and what you're supposed to do. I was like, bro,
Mhm.
this is crazy. So that Who's in the House music video, but that was bonkers because now all of my contemporaries, the people I grew up with in church and stuff, they were actually in the crowd, like the crowd, looking up as at state, and they looking up at me like, yo, D done made it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of wild, man. It was like, it put me at a different level in terms of like respect. People like, dude, man, D up there. And then, then a year later, not that next semester, I'm a sophomore. Carmen was talking about doing a tour. It'll be the first tour that ever went on, with dancers in Christian music history. And he's like, and I was, and at this time I was just more focused on my engineering degree, and I was about to transfer. I was actually filling out my papers to transfer to Morehouse because that's where I really wanted to go, right?
Mhm.
And to do my engineering degree. And so it was around Thanksgiving, just after Thanksgiving, I get a call from Carmen Ministries. I think it was Peggy from Carmen, Peggy Penny is Penny. Her name is Penny. It's hey, there's Carmen really wants to know if you really want to go on tour. I said, yeah, I do, man, but whew, I got to talk it over with my mom. You know what I'm saying? I know how my mom was a stickler. So I'm like, because she already had her a bachelor's. She was going for a master's in teaching, so really heavy on education. So, and we were planning to go back home to Charlotte for Christmas, for the Christmas break, and I was 18 at the time, and we was gonna were they gonna drive? No, we'll take the bus, the Greyhound.
Wow.
Which it was like 36 hours. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't really looking for that. But at 18, I was like, I'm 18. I'm old enough to vote now. At the time. But I told my mom, you and Manuelo, you guys go. I'll stay back. I'm a fast and pray because I really want direction from God. Because I told her about the things. She said, no, you ain't doing that. You ain't leaving school to go on no tour with no Carmen. You know what I'm saying? It was like, so that kind of prompted me. So I don't really go to Charlotte. I just want to stay back, and I'm gonna just fast and pray and just seek God about what His will is. You know what I'm saying? And so we had, my godparents were like two buildings over Curtis and Laura Butler. They were like, so I always had somewhere to go if I needed to hang out or whatever, stuff like that. So, and this around the time when Sister Act 2 came out, right? And
Mm.
and so my brother, he came back home earlier. I think he flew back. He's like, man, I had to get out of Charlotte, man, and come back home. So my mom came back a little bit later, just after New Year's or something like that. And you got to know black mamas. Black mamas don't never apologize. They don't never say I'm sorry.
Asian mamas are the exact same way
Your
too.
mama
'Cause
say,
you got
man, I
you
don't know
you
what
got
it.
a wife downstairs that'll
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I knew what my mom was saying. Right? She just came to me and said, you know what? I saw that Sister Act 2 movie like 5 times. So you gonna go on tour? Are you gonna go back to school at some point? It was just like, huh? It was like,
Wait,
but
wait,
what?
eternity? Oh,
Yeah, and but
hey,
I
I
knew what
know
she was saying.
I know you've seen me been looking at my phone, but I had to pull up the video and stuff just to take
Oh,
a look,
there you
and so I mean,
go.
it's real, folks. It's real.
It's real, it's real. But I knew what she meant by her telling me that she saw Sister Act 2 5 because I think she saw me as Lauren Hill and
Mm,
saw her as Lauren Hill's mom, someone who's trying to keep her from her destiny. And so she was saying that without actually telling me, but I knew exactly. I knew my mother's type of communication.
yeah.
So I called Carmen Ministries. I'm gonna go. Let's do it. And that January, man, really, we started rehearsing or practicing for the tour. And the first dancers ever on the Christian tour and Carmen was the first one because he was years beyond anyone else anyway. And the rest is history, bro. So that's really up until I'm 18. That's in a nutshell my childhood and how God orchestrated my life, even through the difficulties and everything in life. To this young kid who listened to this this guy's music, which was at the moment I didn't realize it, but it was therapeutic for me for what I was going through in life, right? And for me to even have that faith, or even to have a sense like I'm gonna know this guy one day. Some little kid in the country city at that time in Charlotte saying that, it's like that's ridiculous, you know. But seeing me step onto the tour bus at 19, right? I just turned 19, and my brother looking at me. I'm looking back at him, and I know he remembered me telling him I'm gonna know this dude one day. And I think that probably, you know, kind of made him give a pause, like, oh my God, you know, my brother told me this, you know, 6, 7 years ago, and look at this dude, right? So yeah,
And it's amazing. Like, so my first Carmen tape was Somedat. That
wow,
was my first. Yeah, I know. Tape deck. In fact, my parents still have almost every single one of Carmen's tapes that he came out with. And you're right when you say that he was well beyond what anybody else was doing at the time. I mean, you look at like the Champion.
mm,
Here's one of. I mean, that is the. I still play the music video from that because
wow,
it's so powerful, the message that's in it, and his voice carrying through the ring announcing, but the way that he was filming stuff and the way that he was having was so ahead of time. But I mean that was also you, Darius. I mean, you up a lot of that with the choreography that was being done because he
right.
saw something in you. Come on, the guy had a wooden dance floor installed, right?
It's crazy, right?
It's awesome to see how that that came about.
Yeah,
And it's crazy to think, I mean, here it is, Higher Dimensions, Carlton Pearson, Tulsa, Oklahoma,
you don't know where.
and the innovation that came from that. Now, you've talked through, some hard times with your dad, not recognizing you as a child. And I think that, Carmen may have filled some of that void. There was little bits of everyone that kind of filled
Yeah,
in those pieces that were missing. How did you become so resilient to get, because life on the road is not easy,
yeah,
and so part of one of those elements is spiritual resilience. So how do you define spiritual resilience?
man. First and foremost, knowing who I was in Christ. My spiritual godfather, still to this day, Curtis Butler. I remember him telling me, and I remember this like it was yesterday. Him telling me, say, "Hey, that God didn't allow you to have your God did not allow your father to be in his life because he wanted to be your father."
Oof.
And I was like, "Whew, that's deep." You know what I'm saying? I was like, yo, that's crazy, you know? And so I took that to heart. I always saw God as my father. You know, David said, though my mother and father forsake me, you
Mhm.
are with me. Even David understood that, hey, even if my mom and dad reject me, don't want to, abandon me, God, you'll never do that. So I always took that to heart. I always saw that as God was my father. And so my spiritual resilience is always connected to my relationship with God, my relationship with the Holy Spirit and Christ. And that's why my journals are so important to me, because it wasn't just about what I went through. It was also about the things I studied in the word, the things that God said to me, and things I understood from his word, and reading scripture and things like that. So my journal entry basically would start off today, so and so and so. And then it said, today I'm studying whatever it is. If it's 5, I'm studying that and I'm reading it. I'm writing down each scripture in the journal, and I'm going back and I'm trying to and understand what that means for me. So it was always, my resiliency spiritually was always connected to my study of God's word and being able to hear his voice. Ecclesiastes 12:1 is one of my favorite passages. It says, know your creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come. And so that was something I lived my life according to, knowing that I need to know God now when I'm young, because the difficult days, when you get married, got bills, got kids, got a job, got, all these different distractions that can keep you away from, personal relationship with God. won't be an issue because you already know God when you're young. And so when you know God, if you think about when God gives anyone vision, it's always he wants to give vision to the young people because they have enough time in life to complete it, right?
Yeah.
You're able to process, go through, David, you know, he was anointed king when he was a teenager, but he didn't become king until he was in his 30s, but God showed him something into his future that he needed the time and the energy to complete it. That's why it says, young men would dream, young men would have visions, old man would dream dreams. Visions are about what will be, dreams about what I want to see happen, right?
Mm.
So that's why God, I teach my young my daughters and young people I speak to, say God wants to give you vision when you're young, but you need to know who He is, so that when He gives you vision, you'll understand that it's not your vision, but it's the vision that He's giving you to complete in life. So that's why I always saw the importance of knowing God young, because if I knew Him young, He can give me something. He can give me vision. So I got vision from God when I was 19, man. I was on tour. I saw it. I came off tour. We had a break. It was Easter break, and driving down Memorial, 81st and Memorial, just right before we get to higher dimensions, man. It was a moment, just kind of time stood still, and I saw like everything, like this huge facility, and I knew at that moment what the Spirit of God was telling me, that He had called me to build a build a corporation, or at the moment it felt like a corporate, but build a facility, or have a facility that's for the purpose of the multimedia and the arts. And I'm 19, so I only knew at the moment was really dance. So that's all I could see at the moment, just dance studios, right? And and I teach this, and I'll talk about that. The more when God gives you vision, you see it from afar off, right? And so everything's not as clear. 19, of course, that's all I knew. I was dance, so that's all I saw. But the more and more you walk towards that vision, things become more clear. It's kind of like being a mile away from Target, right? You can only see the sign. I know that's Target, but the closer you continue to walk with God and walk closer to that vision, you're gonna realize, oh, the eggs are on sale, right? Oh, there's some blue t-shirts that are there. The clarity of your vision becomes clearer the more and more you walk towards it. And so that has been the summation of my life since 19 until now, 48. 30 years later, later this year, it's like, oh, I'm about to step into the very thing that God showed me at 19, right? And so, and it's been the process. It's been uh because God, the disadvantage people have with getting saved at an older age, in their 30s or 40s, a lot of times you don't have the time you need to complete what God wants you to do, because you wasted 10, 15, 20 year lives just kind of running and doing whatever, as opposed to know your creator in the days of your youth before the difficult days come. And so you have those 30 years. Christ jumped into ministry when he was 30 years old, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you need that time to process and really understand what God has shown you at a young age. So when you get to this point, at 19, I didn't understand that I needed to understand music. I didn't know I needed to understand film and media. I didn't know I needed to understand how to write film and write music and produce. I didn't know none of that. But all that was accumulated through the process of life to understand, oh, I didn't know I needed that. Oh, I didn't know. And so when you get to this point, like, oh, I'm 48. Oh, now I got all these tools over the 30 years of my life since the moment he showed me this, that I didn't see, because all I knew was what I knew at that moment. And so now it all makes sense for me to have these tools or these skills to achieve what God showed me at 19. And so that's why I encourage young people to know God now when you're young, because that's when he wants to give you vision, because vision keeps you disciplined in life, right?
Well, I love the difference that you said there. Vision is of the future, whereas dreams are of the past or what I want it to be.
Yeah.
Which
If
is,
you
I mean, that's powerful. Vision is of the future, and that's why he gave it to the youth. I never connected those 2 points. but now you're actually connecting with the past with Mike.
Yeah.
Let's kind of get into a little bit of that because that man, I'm excited about what this is looking like. Uh, Talk us through mind Mike drop, but then also what the future is going to hold in moving forward with this because now you've opened up that production side.
Yeah. Yeah. The thought behind it is me, myself, and Michael Infant Tater coming back again. We toured together with Carmen. We worked together a lot, and I went to film school at 33. Later in life, and there was a part of my life where God said go to film school. I was like, dang, okay, I'm going to film school. And so after I graduated from film school, uh, you know, we call him Mookie. Mookie hit me up, said, "Hey man, I got an idea. We got to do a documentary about about Christian hip hop. I'm in the music area, you in the film area. Let's make it happen." So we had did a lot of research. We at the time YouTube wasn't as big, but we searched and there was really nothing out there. And so we just started using what we had at the moment, our connections. Because back then when we had the Christian rap group DMT, we all had the same manager. A lot of the artists had the same manager. Dynamic Twins, SFC, ETW, of course. We all had the same manager or booking agent was Rosemary Jordan in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so we were all connected. Dynamic Twins. I remember dancing behind Dynamic Twins and FCC whenever they came to Tulsa, and they ministered at Guts Church. This one, Guts Church, was just like in some small movie theater. I've been
Yep.
there. I was there many times, man. The Hallelujah or the Halloween nights or whatever they just started back then, man.
Yes.
30 years ago. But yeah, so we pulled back to the past relationships that we have, and we started doing that. And so 7 years later, man, the ups and downs of it, man. Getting investors, losing investors, getting investors back into it. But the key was, and I understood this because now I was living in LA. I was really involved in the film industry, understanding what it took to make a film, what it took to not make a film, because 75% of independent films don't get made because they lose money. And so I understood that the way I wanted to go about it was not the way most people went, was to make the movie, then go to a film festival and try to get distribution. My goal was I want to get distribution first. So that way that secures money, that secures the a possibility of investments so I can make the film. And so
Look at
that's what
what
I
we
did.
already have. Look at what we
Yeah.
already have. We've got this. You want to come
Yeah.
along?
Yeah,
Smart.
and so that's what I did. I used money from my pension, because I was with the gas and electric company for 12 years here in San Diego, and I was eligible for early retirement, so I was able to keep my 401k as well as my pension. So that's when I moved to LA, and with my young family at the time, and I spent, man, my own money to travel. In 2015, my first trip was to Tulsa, Oklahoma in January. I went to Tulsa and interviewed Stephen Wiley, January 2015. Flew there, went to Florida, interviewed Dan and Darlene Brock, from Forefront Records. Um, they went to also the same place, Fort Myers. I interviewed KJ52. Flew to Seattle, interviewed my boy. Um, oh man, I forget his name. He was the executive from SFC's label, uh, Brainstorm. Right, and they told me he wouldn't do the interview because he was an atheist. That was like the word around, because I was inquiring. I said, well, I don't care. I'm still calling. I'm still I'm still searching this guy, and I happen to know that he was a teacher, a professor in music in Virginia, some university. I reached out to them. I emailed them, and they said, "Oh, he's actually not here at the time. He's actually in Seattle on vacation." So they said, "Well, we'll send you his email." And I emailed him, and I just kind of give him my spiel. Hey, bro, I just want to get the history on how you guys did what you did. I said, how long you gonna be in Seattle? He was like, I'll be here, 2 or 3 more days. I said, so if I flew out there tomorrow, could we set up interview in my hotel room? He said, yes. So I hopped on the plane the next day and I just like flew. And so that's how it all started, man. Just me grinding, bro. Just and creating this scissor reel, right?
Yeah.
Creating a scissor reel, which we use in the industry to help, tell the story about what a show is going to be, a documentary or whatever. And that's what secured distribution with Warner Music Group, because they saw something that nobody else has this. If we take this now, we do the distribution now, then we have this. And once we're ready to release it, then it's ours. So that's where we are. We at the finish line now. Warner Music has a film. Everything is done, and we're just waiting for the release date.
Man, I am excited. Just growing up listening to DC Talk, listening to Audio Adrenaline, these types of bands that and groups that were always on the forefront, and to see, you going in and having the persistence to get in front of the people that made it happen. On Thursday nights, Chili Baby from Original Gospel Gangster,
Yes,
uh, amazing to hear his story and what he's going through and what he's bringing back and what they went through during that time period. I think about the impact that music has had on me and
yeah.
my family. So our son is adopted.
Mm,
Love him. He is my boy. He's 15. He's been with us
yeah.
since he was 11.
Wow.
Um, and I will tell you, the first up about anything that had happened in his past was we
Mm,
were driving in the truck and NF came on. And we're
wow.
listening to NF, and he's talking about being in the basement and writing on the wall. You don't want to see what's in there. And my boy looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, I know what he means."
Mm,
Well, you know what that did? That
yeah.
the truck went this way. We
Yeah.
threw it into park, and we had a conversation because we had never had it. So that's the power of what this means to me, right? Like
Mm,
that's a personal love note from me to my son, is just the idea of being able to sit down and hear words, able to connect in a way that goes beyond what the artist's intent was, but then to see
yes.
that impact that it has in the healing process as well, as long as we'll allow it to come alongside it. Darius, I am excited to see this for that reason, and to take my son and to be able to sit down with him and watch it together
Yes.
because of the impact it's had on us growing together. It
Yes.
has truly been the music of the heart, and to go from Somadat
Hmm.
to NF
Yeah.
Mansion, uh, it's a widespread, a lot of different ways it could have gone.
Mm,
But for me, I want to say a personal thank you for doing that and taking us on that journey and being so persistent, because if it wasn't for your persistence, it would have never gotten done.
wow. Wow. Yeah.
So think about that. Hey, do you have any final words as we start to close this out?
Now, just just want to encourage those who are listening. Man, just pursue God. I literally right before I jumped on, I saw a video on Instagram. I forget the oh man, Madison something. I follow. She used to be on American Idol, and she didn't win, but she's a believer. I just saw a video she just posted today about really taking a step back and putting God first.
Mm,
And she said up to this point she's been putting her career first and things like that. And it's affected her health, mentally, spiritually, and even physically. And she's taking couple months and just reconnect with God. And that's I was really impressed by that, because it takes a lot of guts to do that, right? Especially in this industry. And just really to encourage people, man, reconnect with God. Or if you already connected, just get closer to Him, man. This is even for myself, because I think in the hustle and bustle of life and just trying to, do what we got to do, that we tend to, step out of our priorities. And that's one of the things I always remind myself when it comes to, my life, just having that balance: God first, family, work, then ministry.
mm,
And so there's a difference. People think ministry and God is the same thing. No, it's not. God is your personal relationship with God, right? Then your personal relationship with your family, then work, because that's what provides for your family, then ministry. So because I have learned how to balance that and put that in perspective, That has helped me, stay resilient and stay positive about life. That if I was to, if the ministry was to fall away, I still got a job. I still got my family. I still got God. If I got laid off from my job, I still got my family. I still got God. If my family was wiped off the planet of Earth, God forbid, it's not gonna happen, but I still got God, right? And so that's kept me and understanding the balance of my life. And so just want to encourage people just to put God first, make him your priority, and you're gonna see how much he loves you by the things he not only just does for you, but speaks to you about your life
And just have relationship. Have
relationship.
relationship. I mean, even just having this conversation, having a little conversation on a Thursday night between two individuals to see how far they were away from each other, but yet how
Yeah.
close they were in growing up. It's
Yes.
amazing to lead it to this conversation, which was absolutely amazing. Darius, I am beyond words that you took the time to sit down and give us over an hour now to sit down and just have that conversation. And I know that somebody out there is going to be needing this. And just so you know, whoever that is out there, we're here for you. We're here to have those conversations. Reach out. I'll talk to anyone, anytime. We are Today's episode is only possible thanks to my friend and producer G Frazier with 369sounddesign.com. Jeff, you're truly the hardest working one in all of industry because you get to try week in and week out to make this voice sound somewhat believable. We are blessed by the entire team here at the Wartime Leadership Podcast. See you next time. Be